What is up, nerds? It is Reptile DIY here again, and today we are going to be painting up some logos on a leather jacket with freezer paper stencils. So let's get this shit started. If you guys remember, a few years back, I did a tutorial video on how to paint logos on leather jackets. I was using the graphing method and rudimentary stencils. For this video, I'm going to do an updated tutorial where I use freezer paper stencils. This method is a whole hell of a lot easier than those methods, and those methods were pretty easy to begin with. So let's talk about supplies. First and foremost, you're going to need a leather jacket and our vest. I prefer wearing second-hand real leather. If you are a vegan and you like to wear fake leather, I would avoid the cheap fake leather jackets because the paint just comes right off of them. Instead, I would look at the straight-to-hell vegan leather jackets, or even Angry Young and Poor. They have a really good vegan leather jacket as well. You are also going to need some rubbing alcohol. You're also going to need some freezer paper, not wax paper, specifically freezer paper, as well as a computer, a tablet, anything with a screen, and or a printer. Now, these aren't necessary, they're just going to make it a whole hell of a lot easier. Next up, we need an X-Acto blade, some tape, a clothes iron, and to paint our jacket, we are going to use some paint pens and our Angelus leather paint. I prefer using black and white. You can use any color you want, but I like to use black to clean up any mistakes. And to finish up our supplies, we are going to need some paint clear coat, some paint sealer. I like to use the stuff from Angelus, the leather sealer, but even the stuff in a can you get at the store works just as well. So our first step is to clean the leather surface of anywhere that we're going to paint. This is important because it pulls off dirt, it pulls out oils, and it just helps the paint stick. So for that, we're going to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You can also use vodka or whatever sort of green liquor you might have laying around, and just a wash rag or a cloth. And you don't want to soak your leather with it. You just want a little bit, and you just want to pull off that top layer of oil and dirt, and whatever sort of crud that might be on that jacket. It's going to help your paint stick a lot better. It is also important to note that you do not want to overwork your leather jacket with your rubbing alcohol because you could potentially put a hole in the surface of your leather. Alright, next up we're going to talk about making our stencils. So here's our freezer paper. Like I said, you want freezer paper, not wax paper, not baking paper. You want freezer paper specifically. And what I like to do is take the freezer paper out, set it on top of my vest, and just kind of sketch out the size of the logo that I want. As you can see, I have an upper panel and a lower panel, and they're kind of fit to size of the logo that I want to put there. Here's the front side of my jacket with that little flap in the front. I'm also going to do a logo up there. Now guys, I have another video where I show you how to make freezer paper stencils for patches. A lot of the techniques in that video can be applied to leather, so if you don't have a computer, maybe you don't have a printer, check out that video. The link will be in the description down below. Also guys, check out that video if you want to learn how to just print off your stencils. Printing off stencils onto freezer paper is insanely easy. But I'm not going to do it today with this leather jacket because the logos I'm putting on my leather jacket are going to be way bigger than the size of printer paper, which is 8 by 11 inches. And if you guys are looking for stencils, I'm going to do a shout out to Anarcho stencilism on DeviantArt. One of my followers turned me onto them. There's also another page called stencilpunks.org. I believe at this point it is now a Tumblr blog. Both these pages are amazing resources for punk, goth, metal, and political stencils. I also have this great video that shows you how to make a stencil out of any image you want. The link will be down in the description below. Alright guys, so let's start with our stencils. I picked 3 different images. I believe I got 2 of them from the Anarcho stencilism website. And as you can see, I'm putting them against my computer screen. I'm just going to trace them on. Now when you trace on with freezer paper, you want to make sure the shiny side is down and the dull side is up, and you just tape your image onto your screen, and then you just lightly trace it with a pencil. Super, super easy. Here's another one I'm doing just like that. And as you can see, the reason that I'm using this tracing method is because my images are a lot bigger than the 8 by 11 printer paper. Awesome, so we have our images traced. We're going to just tape them onto a piece of cardboard and just go in with an X-Acto blade and just cut everything out. This is really delicate and just take your time, alright guys? One thing to remember when it comes to letters are some images, there's an insert. With this destroy, the D, the R, and the O, they're going to have a little insert. We're going to save those for later. Alright guys, now we can start ironing on our stencil onto the jacket. And like I said, you're going to want that shiny side down, and you're just going to lightly tack it down, maybe low to medium heat with this iron. You do not want to overwork your leather because you will burn the shit out of it. So just nice and lightly, and just don't overwork it. After it's tacked down, you could even put like a piece of cloth over it and then kind of hit a little bit more just to make sure it sticks. Alright, The one thing that's different with leather when it comes to making those canvas patches with the same stencils is that the canvas patches, you really want to work that shit in there. With leather, you just want to tack it on so it's nice and smooth, but you don't want to work it in too hard because you will burn your leather. Now guys, if you are totally sketched out with the idea of putting a hot iron onto your leather jacket, don't worry, because there's another method where you just apply your stencils using eyelash glue. Living Dead Girl has a video on her channel where she shows you how to do this all the way through. I'll put a link down below, but it's a lot less intense than using a hot iron. But hey, it's DIY, everybody does things their own way, and this way it works for me. Now that our stencil is secured to the back of our leather, we're going to start painting. For this, I'm going to use my chisel tip paint marker. You can use Angelus paint. I like to use paint markers for this. I like to lightly dab my first layer on. You don't want to slide this across, and you don't want your paint to be too thick for this first layer. Just lightly dab it on, just like that. There's layer 1, let it dry a little bit. There's layer 2, maybe do 3 layers. I believe I did 3 layers for this, but then next up, we're just gonna peel it off, okay? Remember guys, this is time-lapse. This took me probably a couple hours to get this all done, but here we go, pulling the stencil off. Then I'll just go back with my X-Acto blade and pull out those inserts. I actually forgot to show you guys when I added those inserts of the letters in. Don't worry, I'll show you with the next one. But anyway, there's those inserts. We're just gonna lightly pull them off. Very smooth, right? Looks great, right? It could look better. After we have our stencil removed, I'm going to go back with a fine tip black paint marker and just clean up the edges, clean up any mistakes, clean up any bleeding that might have came underneath that stencil, alright? And there we go, just clean it up. Take your time so things look nice, alright? And boom, there we go. It looks okay. Maybe clean it up a little bit more, but there we go. Some more details and perfect. Alright guys, so for this next one, I'm just going to speed run the entire thing. Same process, cut out your stencil, apply your stencil on low to medium heat with your iron. If you don't want to do that, use Living Dead Girl's method with the eyelash glue, but I'm just going to do my method. Nice, it's stuck on. Now we're going to just lightly dab on our paint pen. There we go. We'll probably do 2 or 3 layers, get it nice and even on there, and bam, take that son of a bitch off. We're pretty much good. One thing I do want to point out, sometimes if you do overwork your stencil, you'll get a little bit of white fuzz like down there. You can see it. Now it's not really stuck on the leather, but all I did was take a piece of wet cloth and I just kind of wiped it out. I'm going to do that in a second, you'll see. But that's what I'm talking about, that right there. Don't worry about that. Just go back, get a cloth a little bit wet and wipe it off. And if you can't get it off, just go over it with black paint pen. Just clean it up all nice. No one will even know, alright? Trust me. And here is our finish back piece. Like I said, guys, this is super, super easy. A lot easier than the first 2 methods from my original video. But hey, let's get into panel painting. You guys remember I talked about panel painting in my first leather jacket video? And you already know, the link will be down in the description below. But anyway, we're going to be using some panel painting techniques, along with the technique that I call negative stenciling. So let's get into that. So pretty much negative stenciling is where you use the inside of the stencil as the stencil instead of the outside. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but if you look at what I got all my letters for fuck off and die. We cut them all out, and then we're going to cut out the inserts of those letters, and you'll see what I mean. And if you guys mess up, like, don't worry about it. See that little D over there? Yeah, we all see the little D. But if you mess up, well, you can always iron that on back later when you're all said and done. So don't worry about messing up. But now that we have our letters set out, we're going to go ahead and iron them one by one. We have our F. And just follow the methods that I showed you previously. Like I said, you don't want to overwork the leather with the iron. Nice and slow. You can take a rag, put it on top, and set it in a little bit more. But after we got our F, we're going to go back and do the O. And we're going to do the A. And we're going to do the D. So we messed up on the D. We have it tacked on, so now we're going to add on the part that I accidentally cut off. Just get it nice and even right there, and then we're just going to go over it and just tack it on. Like, mistakes are easy to make, mistakes are going to happen, but they're really easy to fix. So let's continue on. We got everything tacked down, and we're just going to go over it again with a cloth over all of our stencils and just put some heat on it. Like I said, not too much heat, but just enough so the freezer paper sticks. Here we are, and now we're going to see why it's called a negative stenciling. So I'm going to take some white acrylic paint. You can also use white Angelus paint or whatever color Angelus paint you want. Angelus paint is essentially just high-end acrylic paint, specifically for leather. Cheap acrylic paint works just fine. We're going to take our paint and a sponge brush and we're just going to dab it on. So essentially, when we're all done painting this, we're going to pull the letters off and we're going to have black letters on a white background, hence the name negative stenciling. And I just dab it on, probably do 2 layers with plenty of time to dry in between. You might have to do a 3rd depending on your paint. But once everything's all said and done and dry, you just take your X-Acto blade and you just pull your stencils up. And as you can see with these stencils, there was a lot of bleeding. Don't worry about that, we'll fix it right up. Just pull those stencils up. Now we're gonna clean everything up with a black paint pen. And wow, way better, right? Everything's all cleaned up, super easy. That is negative stenciling and panel painting. So to finish up our leather jacket logos, we are just going to use some leather sealer. This is Angelus leather sealer. You can get stuff in spray cans that works just as good, but I'm gonna be using this Angelus leather sealer. I'm gonna put it in a little cup, I'll use a sponge brush, and I'm probably gonna do 2 or 3 nice, light, even layers. Plenty of time for it to dry in between, and it dries on clear, so you're not actually gonna see it. It's gonna make your logo stay on a lot longer on the back of your jacket. Some people don't clear their stuff. I like to clear my stuff because I want my shit to last as long as possible. But here we go, we're doing the front and the back. Super easy, 2 to 3 light layers. So here we are, the finished product. We have our front, we have our back. It looks pretty crisp and clean. Like I said, I love using the freezer paper stencils, whether I'm making patches or I'm working on the back of a leather jacket. Freezer paper stencils are extremely versatile no matter what you're putting them on. Hopefully you guys learned some new skills, and feel free to ask me questions down below. I'd love to hear from you, and while you're at it, check out my other DIY tutorials. Until next time, I'll see you later, nerds.